Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, Podmasters, wherever you may be calling in from. We're so glad that you are here. We have a great speech coming up, but it's more than just a speech. It's very unique to our group here. It's actually a live interview. Our very own Lorri Andersen, who is our District 7's immediate past district director, is here to talk to Fred Bergeron, District 7's Public Relations Manager, about his recent trip to the International Convention. I am excited to hear about this adventure, so please help me welcome Lorri Andersen.
Thank you, Madam Dina. That is wonderful. I am very excited today to talk to Fred about his trip. Fred was the past District 84 Public Relations Manager and now the current District 7 Public Relations Manager. So he's got a lot of experience. He's had a lot of fun recently, and we're going to hear about his trip. So Fred, I'm excited today as you're going to talk about your trip and the experience that you had at the International Convention in Bahamas. Was this your first time to an international convention?
It was my first time in person, Lori. I actually attended the one in Nashville virtually last year, but this is my first one in person. Technically, it would have been my second. The first one would have been Paris, but we all know what happened to that. So it's my second one, first one in person.
So you live pretty close, right?
Yeah, it was only an hour flight. I'm in Florida, so that's hop, skipping, and jumping away, and it was still in Eastern time zone. However, I wasn't near as close as our immediate past regional advisor who lives in the Bahamas. So she didn't have to go very far at all.
No, I saw the highlights from her back window when she would talk to us as a regional advisor. So tell us about your trip down. Did it go as expected?
It's funny you ask, Lori, because unfortunately it did not. Like, I live in Daytona Beach, Florida, and there's an airport 20 minutes from me, but it would have cost me double the fare to fly out of there. So I had to drive about an hour, 20 minutes to Orlando. And my flight was supposed to leave at 2:55 p.m. I left my house at 10:30 in plenty of time, drove around for 2 hours before I realized there's no place to park. So I found a security guard at the bottom of the Blast parking lot, and she says, "Oh, you have to go one street over to the parking garage there, the Park and Go, and it's only a few dollars a day." So I went there, and they asked me, "Do you have a reservation?" I said, "For my flight, yes. To park here, no." And I said, "I don't want to miss my flight." So they took me in, and immediately, as soon as they took me in, they had a little shuttle bus waiting for me, took me to the airport, made it with about an hour and a half to spare. But that's just the icing on the cake, Lori, because once I got on the plane, we were delayed an hour because there was a little bit of rain. So and then when I get there, I was looking forward to the opening ceremonies and taking some videos and photos. Needless to say, my luggage never made it to the Bahamas with about 6 other passengers. So needless to say, I was walking around with the same clothes for 2 days. And I ran across the District 84 trio, and the current club growth director. First thing she said to me was, "I got a dress you can borrow if you want to wear it." And I was this close to saying yes to the dress because I figured it's better than walking around naked. So, but my luggage came the next day, late afternoon, about 12:15 in the afternoon. So I was able to wear clean clothes.
Oh, wow. So tell me, what else was missing, or what else was inside your suitcases besides your luggage or your clothes?
Well, my clothes, my camera equipment, everything was intact. And I mean, intact as far as no damage, and intact as nothing was uh stolen or nothing else was lost. So everything else was there. And then when my friend saw me walking around the next day in a different set of clothes, oh, it looks like your luggage arrived. I'm like, you think?
So your experience to the Bahamas was one. I've had a similar experience. My husband and I were going to go to uh, back east to visit some friends. Our luggage was headed for Portland, Oregon, but actually we were headed to Portland, Maine. So it was just like a total mix up. So I totally get how the inconvenience that was for you. So I'm so glad you got your luggage back in time. So you got there finally, and so you were delayed and all of that. Who was the first speaker that you heard when you got to
Well,
the
fortunately, even
convention?
though I missed the opening ceremonies as far as the flags go, I was able to see the keynote speaker named Lisa Nichols. And she had a very inspiring speech. Gloria Darling was also at the convention. So she probably saw more of the opening ceremonies than I did. But the two main words that stuck out in Lisa Nichols' speech, I don't even remember the title of her speech, was yes, yes. So all throughout the convention, if someone asked you a question and the answer was yes, it was yes, yes.
That's funny. What an experience to be able to listen to such a keynote speaker. So this was your first time to the Bahamas. Did you do anything else besides go to the international convention that was interesting and fun?
Um, yes, and I can tell you, look, I can check the Bahamas off my bucket list because that was one thing on my bucket list. And one thing I did get to do that I took full advantage of at the hotel we were at the Baha Mar, they had all kinds of places you could entertain yourself. They had about 3 different swimming pools, and they also had a water park that had about 3 or 4 different slides. So during one of the educational sessions, I'm like, I'm gonna go down one of these water slides. Well, the first thing I did was they had an inner tube ride. You just go down this little waterway and you just ride in an inner tube and you go down. And silly me, because I'm a photographer and videographer, I didn't know that I could have purchased some type of protector for my phone because they had people taking photos going down this little makeshift river. I'm like, oh man, I said I should have done that. But you live and learn. And after that snafu with my luggage and my equipment, I didn't want to take any chances. But the funnest part I did was they had 2 different water slides in each area. They had I call it a twisty twirl, and then they had a straight down one. And the twisted twirl one I was on, they called it the Devil's Backbone. And I must have went up about 20 flights of stairs because when I got to the top, believe me, my heart and my breath knew it when I got to the top. That was a workout in and of it. So, but let me tell you, Lori, once I got in the water, all that didn't matter. And the fun part is if you've ever been in a water slide like this, they put you in a capsule like you're in a spaceship, and they close you in and they push the button and you hear it counting down going in 3, 2, 1. And next thing you know, you're dropping down. And no sooner am I going down, I'm like, oh, I want this thing to be over. And no sooner did I say that, I was already at the bottom of the water slide. And then some little girl was there who had been on both slides like 8 times. And I'm like, you need to be the one operating the button, not this person up here. It was the same thing. The straightaway one, once you got in there, I got all the water hitting my face, just wanted it to be over with. And no sooner did I think it, I was at the bottom. So that was probably the highlight outside of the convention. of my time there. So it kind of made up for the luggage lost and the first part of the missing the first part of the opening ceremonies.
Oh gosh, friend, I gotta hand it to you. Scary rides, that is something I cannot do. Now I know I'm not supposed to say I can't do anything, but there are some things that I just prefer not to do, and that is going on very long, scary, steep rides. And my family just loves it when I get on one of those because they can see me squirm and scream and yell, no, take me back to solid ground. So good for you for getting on that slide. So I understand that you got to see all 8 contestants. Can you tell me a little bit about your feelings uh, going through this experience and some of the things that you heard and felt as the speakers got up to speak?
Well, I'm sure you've heard this a bunch of times at contests, Lori, where people say, "I'm glad I wasn't a judge," and this was no exception. All the speakers were phenomenal, and the I won't say ironic thing about it is of the 8 finalists, 6 of the 8 were women, and the top 3 finishers were women. And the top 3 that finished, neither one of them used any type of props or audience engagement. They spoke from the heart. So the top 3 winners were all women. I think that's the second time that I know of in Toastmasters history where the top 3 winners in the World Championship of Public Speaking were women.
Oh, that's nice. Thank you, Fred, for that recap. I want to ask you something about this here. Can you tell me a little bit about this picture?
Sure. The one on the left is at the Region 1 gathering. All the regions had different gatherings at the same time from 8 to 9:30. So I had to split my time between Region 1 and Region 8, which is where District 84 is. So I went to Region 1 first, and Rose is there. And before the meeting got started, she said, everyone pick a prop. So there was a table and had a bunch of different sunglasses. So I grabbed one, Rose grabbed one, and Sandra Nunez, our new international director, happened to grab one. And someone was standing behind us that says, "Hey, can you take a picture of us?" Because I figured we probably won't see each other in person again for a while. So I figured, hey, can someone take the picture? So that's the picture you see of us on the left being silly. And I wore those glasses at the Region 8 gathering afterwards. And I'm like, cool glasses. Where'd you get them from? So I kind of carried that tradition with me. The photo you see on the right is our immediate past Region 1 International Director, Louisa Davis, getting roasted. While we were there, our current region advisor, Rose, says, "Oh, before we continue, we're going to roast our outgoing international director, Louisa Davis." I got to go first, and I didn't know that much about her, so I was doing what I could with what I knew about her. And then I don't remember this gentleman's name, but he stood up and he's the one that suggested, well, if we're going to roast Louisa, we need to have a chair for her. So that's what you see in those 2 photos right there was the having fun in person with 2 of our leaders and roasting one of our outgoing leaders.
Thank you, Fred. When I look at your picture, it looks like you've got those props are a unicorn, but you told me that those are 2 little guitars on the
Yes.
edge of those sunglasses. So
Yeah.
that was quite a prop. And if we've got to meet Louisa Davis in person when she came to our district, and I know she's got a pretty good sense of humor, so she probably took that pretty
She did.
well in stride.
She
So
did.
thanks so much for sharing those pictures. I'm glad that your phone
Mhm.
was intact, that
Yes.
you didn't have to go through that. So did you get to see or hear International President at the time, International President Matt Kinsey, and past International President Mr. Richard Peck?
Yes, I heard him several times, and because Matt Kinsey was the outgoing international president, he did a lot of the master of ceremonies things because the incoming president wasn't there. So Matt was doing a lot of the speaking at some of the contests and some of the dignitary things like that. And I actually got to hear Richard Peck at least twice. Once on Friday night at the president's ball. And one of the things he said is, we're so used to seeing anybody in these small boxes that it's probably good to see everybody in person. And he also got to speak at the Region 1 gathering. So that was a treat as well. So he only spoke for just a few minutes. So I actually got to hear him speak twice on two different occasions. We kept passing each other. I never really got a chance to say hi because he was always getting swarmed by people, and I didn't want to sound like this guy, hounding somebody for an autograph or anything like that. So I just kept moving.
I really like him. He came to our District 7 convention a couple of years ago, and he said he looks very formal. He said, "Now I want you to call me Richard." And I said, "I can't do that. I have to call you Mr. Peck. That's the way I was raised. No, call me Richard." So very good for you. I'm so glad you got that opportunity to see our international presidents. So tell me, Fred, what is the biggest takeaway that you had from the convention?
The biggest takeaway I had was witnessing a lot of that stuff in person, especially the speeches, because I don't think you would have had the same effect. I don't think the wow factor would have been there if you saw it online. I mean, you physically had to be there hearing these speakers' stories, especially the top three finishers, hearing them and then being there and then seeing, at least one of them had a handicap and how she overcame that in her speech is just captivating. So just that whole in-person part of it was probably my biggest takeaway, other than marking it off my bucket list.
Definitely. You got to have one more now on your bucket list to replace that one. And what would you say your lessons learned are or were from this trip?
Lessons learned would be, even if it's going to cost you a little bit more money, get there at least the day before the convention, not the day of, because I was trying to save a little bit of money. So took advantage of the fee when you got there the day of. Look what happened. So I would say get there at least a day early. And if they have something called Helping Hands, take advantage of it, because it cuts your convention fee almost in half, unless you're running for district office. But if you're just going there as a normal attendee, take advantage of the Helping Hands, because it saves. Gloria was a Helping Hands person, and maybe sometime later we can ask her about that. But take advantage of that too, because you're kind of killing two birds. You're still serving Toastmasters, you're still at the convention, and you're still having fun. And from my understanding, you can pick and choose what you want as far as Helping Hands responsibility. So if there's an educational session you want to make, or ride on a water slide, things like that, then you can kind of work around that. So those would be my lessons learned: is get there at least a day early, and just to kind of get settled in ahead of time, and just kind of make sure you're settled in ahead of time before you take in everything, because there's so much to take in so little time, Lorri.
Right. And maybe take an extra set of clothes on as another
Yes.
carry-on bag.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
definitely.
That is correct. In your backpack or something like that.
Yeah, for
And something
sure.
told me I should have kept my camera case with me, but they said, "No, we'll save you money and we'll put it in your
Oh,
suitcase so you won't have to pay more money." And look what happened.
that's true. At least you had your phone.
Yeah.
Well, tell us, where is the convention next year?
The convention next year is going to be in Anaheim, California, where they claim where it all started, commemorating the 100th anniversary of Toastmasters. And they were supposed to be doing a special for the first 100 days after they announced it, that if you reserve now, you save $100.
Well, that's great. I'm excited, Fred. I hope that you get the opportunity to go next year and many more people do as well. This has been fun. I really have enjoyed listening to you and finding out more about the convention this year. And with that, I will ask you very much to just say, let's just give thank you for being here, and we will turn control back to our Toastmaster.
Thank you, Lorri.
Just as I'm wrapping up the editing for this video before it posts, I feel it's important to remind you that Podmasters is a club that hasn't chartered yet. So we meet on the first and third Sundays of each month. We're looking for members who want to create podcasts or want to support podcasts or maybe even do some of the technical stuff. The contact information to get a hold of us is right next to me here. And I hope to see you in an upcoming meeting. Also, we've got more interviews coming up, scheduled in the works. Keep an eye on those. Thanks.